Mark Meadows. Good evening. I don't call you Congressman anymore. Do I call you Chief of Staff or just Chief?
You can call me Mark. How about that? That's what I prefer. But Judge, great to be back with you. And you were spot on with your monologue. When we look at the enemy and what China and really the China government did to the American people by hiding the facts. We're having to pay the consequences for their lack of transparency, and the American people are just not going to sit back and take it. And I can tell you, this president is not going to do that either.
Well, the president has repeatedly for the past, ever since he's come into office, talked about the imbalance in terms of trade. And just recently, the Hong Kong Autonomy Act and the sweeping executive order calls for various sanctions and restrictions against China as a result of what it did to Hong Kong. Can you give us an idea of what those restrictions are?
Well, basically, it's trying to make sure that Hong Kong doesn't get special preferential treatment. We're going to treat them just like we would any other city in China. But more importantly, this president is willing to tackle it because what they're saying is they don't value freedom and democracy. We see that from the way that they've conducted themselves, not only with regards to the transparency in this virus epidemic that we're now facing before us in every city across the country and indeed around the world. But we also see it in the way that Attorney General Barr laid out when they look at stealing our intellectual property, when they really are not being good corporate citizens. And I can tell you, this president's willing to negotiate with them, but he's also willing to hold them accountable if they're not willing to live up to the deal as he's put forth. And so I can tell you, I get to hear it each and every day where this president says, why have previous administrations not addressed China in their takeover of American businesses and property? And so we've just got to make sure that we hold them accountable, and the president's willing to do that.
And before I get to John Lewis, I just want to ask you one more question. The other administrations seem not to care or not to recognize the deficit, certainly in terms of trade. And the president got a good trade deal, and then it all went to kaput when the virus was unleashed. And unfortunately, as a result of that, we now still, though, have businesses and technology companies within the United States who are, as I said in my open, effectively lobbying for China.
Well, they're lobbying for China, and I think more importantly, it is time that we act as Americans and bring back a lot of our supply chain from overseas. We found that you mentioned about some of that personal protective equipment that was sent to other countries and was defective. I was talking to an ambassador the other day, and they said a lot of what they got from China was not only overpriced, but it was under quality in terms of every standard you would look at. And you're right, they are asking for others to applaud them in their effort. This president's not going to stand up for it. This administration is not going to do that. And so you'll see additional actions that are coming as we start to bring back that manufacturing, protect American jobs, and make sure that we hold China accountable.
Well, clearly it has been a priority of this president. But let's move on to the death of that civil rights icon, John Lewis. You worked with him. What are you feeling today? What is the impact in Washington and on America?
Well, obviously, you're right. He is a civil rights icon. I did have the honor and privilege of serving with him in the House of Representatives, and literally the icon that he is, you would think that he was very understated if you met him in person, always engaging, always willing to take time to talk to students when they would come to visit. But I think for most people, it's a reminder, if we're willing to stand for what we believe in and we're willing to be steadfast in that belief, that we'll be remembered not just for what we did, but we'll be remembered long after we die for the difference we've made. And I only hope and pray that it can be said of so many of us that we can make a real impact on behalf of our fellow man.
As you think about him and the fight that he waged, alongside Martin Luther King, you have to wonder how frustrated he might have felt at the end of his days. As to what was going on in America. It's as though on the streets of America, I mean, do you think he had a feeling that, more needs to be done, or this was a fight that was already waged?
Well, I think, for John, I don't know that I can speak on what he was thinking in these last days. He's been battling, obviously, an illness that ended up consuming him. But what I will say is, for the vast majority of Americans, what we can support is peaceful protesters who are willing to stand up for a cause. What we won't tolerate, and what we shouldn't tolerate, is the anarchy that we continue to see in some of our cities across the country, even tonight in the streets of Portland and other cities, where tragically it is not about a peaceful protest with a message. In fact, many times it's hard to even describe what the message is. But the other thing that is still troubling that we have to come to grips with is the senseless killing that continues to happen in our major cities, where we have kids and grandkids that their lives are taken too early for senseless gun violence that honestly has become epidemic in some of our larger cities. We've got to make sure that law and order is restored there. I can tell you that General Barr and the President of the United States are fully engaged. You'll see more on that in the coming days.
All right. Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, great to have you on. Your first time on Justice as Chief of Staff. Good to have you back.
Great to be with you, Judge. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And coming up, is it safe to send your kids back to school in just over a month? Dr. Robert Hariri is here tonight with new information. And next, what does FBI Director Christopher Wray have up his sleeve? Senator Lindsey Graham, next.